I owe you one Southern Pepper.
Now, for those, I had the 2-minute warning. David, you can get this. No, we're just gonna. This is our first time to put this together, and there were some things that we were wanting to do. One was a swap meeting. We just didn't quite get it all together. Another was networking, which at the end of the conference, we'll try to get kind of groups of people together so we can at least, if you're interested in getting together with people in your area or close to your area, we're going to try to have everyone into different locations. We planned to do that before, but like I say, this is the first time we've ever done anything like this, and to be honest with you, you guys made it a huge success. So thank you for coming out, and thank you for everything you've done. It's overwhelming. Sailing Manuel back there, he said when he first pulled in, he saw 3 cars. He said, "Oh no." I would have closed my channel down. I'm telling you today, I would have just put it. I
parked in the wrong spot. Parked in front.
I don't know that we know yet. We probably have it on for the tickets. We just count them up and see how many we got left. But I'm going to talk about a few things and about survival and about prepping. Now, there are many of you that are out there that have been prepping for many years, that know a lot of details, that know a lot of things that are going on. Listen, you may glean a few things here and there, but you pretty much have a good grasp on what you're doing. Always looking, but you may not have learned that much here. And that really wasn't the purpose of this conference. The big purpose was to bring people together that were like-minded. That was really the number one reason, is to draw people together, but also to give you guys some information. There were a lot of people that drove a long way. In fact, how many people drove, let me see Florida, because I know some of you guys. Yes. Yep. Right here. Yes. Give them a hand. West Virginia. Here. Yes. Okay, good. Right there. Now, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. If you drove 8 hours, let's just put it this way: if you drove 8 hours, raise your hand. I know some of you right here. Connecticut. I know we had one from Connecticut right here. I had one guy say he was coming from Canada. And if you hadn't shaken my hand already, shame on you, because I'll tell you what, man, that would have been unbelievable. The one thing about it is, this is becoming more and more popular. People are interested. People are looking. Now, you may be here, and you may be going, "What in the world?" Somebody drug you down here. Come on, come with me. You may be a wife going, "My husband has lost his mind." I know there are many of you out there, believe me, I do know that. You may be a husband that "My wife has lost her mind." There are a lot of different places that each of us are at. And I'll tell you, to say that, just like David said earlier, Southern Prepper, no one knows what's going to happen. No one knows. The people in Japan had no idea 1 second before it hit. 1 second. Now, you may be one of those guys that says, "You know what, I'm a hurricane prepper." I have snowstorm. I had a friend of mine up in Brevard was stranded for 2 weeks a few years ago. 2 weeks, could not get off the mountain, was completely stuck. I know where my parents live. The road actually collapsed, and they were stuck. So, there are times where there's some of us that say, "You know what, we've got to make preparations for a short-term goal." I read recently where a family was burned out of their house, and when they stepped out, they were in their pajamas, they came out, that was it. I'm going to tell you guys, you don't just all of a sudden get preparations immediately, even before the insurance starts to kick in. You're standing out in the middle of the cold or the wet or wherever, and you're watching everything you have burn to the ground. Now, what we're going to talk about, though, is different places that each of us are. And really, this conference is not to say Armageddon is tomorrow. This is not what this is about. In fact, I had a girl from Florida. She emailed me one time, and she'd been watching some very passionate, into-the-world type scenarios. And she said, I'm going to sell my boat. I'm going to do this. We're going to do everything. We're going to, sell everything. We're going to buy all the food we can buy. And I said, first thing, I said, number one, I'm not going to tell you to sell your boat. I said, calm down. I said, take a deep breath. We do not prep out of a spirit of fear, period. When I first got on YouTube, of course, my first video was about global warming. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It was about 3 in the morning. I had to actually put an annotation, I am not drunk. Because I watched it again yesterday, and I thought, I'm not really so sure. Just saying. But, I started out doing that, just putting up something, but after I started doing when I started seeing what was going on, and I started putting on a few videos, I would get so many unemployed guys with a family that would say, man, what do I do? Where am I going to go from here? What do I need to do? Single moms with kids, scared to death. And they said, I just watched this video, and this guy said, if you don't have your food, it's too late. Anybody ever seen this kind of video? It said, it's too late. And you know what? You look at their video, and they would have they might as well, I think they may have been a manager of a grocery store, because honestly, they had like this row of food and supplies and provisions. I've been there. I've been there before, where I looked at that, and I said, look, there's no way. Honestly, the book Patriots, which I love that book, I've read it about 6 times. In fact, one of my copies has come completely apart. Butch, I think you turned me into that book. When I read that book, and I looked at the preparations those guys were doing, putting steel plates in their houses, and doing, honestly, I just went, well, what's the use? I can't do that. I'm not gonna, and it kind of froze me. Listen, do not be paralyzed by fear. Do not be overwhelmed. The reason why we call this the Sensible Prepper Conference is because the word sensible is key. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you'll do a little bit every day. People ask me, they'll say, how in the world did you come up with 50 AR magazines? I bought all those at the Assault Weapons Band. Yeah, well, John and I, the guy's got the camera running. We bought magazines every time we turned. I've got many more than that now, believe me. But, I'd pick them up. I'd be at the gun show. 1, 2. 1, 2. Ammunition. 1, 2. 1, 2. You know what? Next thing I did, I turned around and looked at it, and I went, whoa. The sheriff of our county in Brevard asked me one time, he goes, how much 45 do you have? I said, 3,200 rounds. He just laughed, because he's a good friend of mine, thank goodness. But slowly, that's just 45, guys. That's not, that's not 223. But you know what? Now you might say, man, that's just too much. You know what? I'm not telling you need to do that. I'm saying, do a little bit every day. Now, Chad touched on something, and I know the guys have already talked about it. Water, food. Listen, the rule of 3s is so important. And I said this down at the Edgefield meeting, but years ago, my idea of prepping, if I had an extra $400 or $500, do you know what I went and bought? A gun. And you know what? I kept doing that. And I'm still, if I get a chance, where's my wife? For someone that has no interest necessarily in knowing all about guns, she knows when I get a new one every time, I tell you. But, that was my thing. I loved guns, and I was going to buy a brand new gun. I had $500, man. It was not going toward food. It was going toward a gun. Now, guys, let me tell you. That your priorities are off. Believe me, right now, I'm thinking about the gun show coming up in 2 weeks. I am. But more importantly, I just came back from the cannery. Now, David, we talked back, David, Southern Prepper, turned me on to the cannery. And we went down, barely got an appointment. And now, thank goodness, because I don't think we could have gotten one. We got an appointment. We went because she said, at first she said no. She said, end of April. And this was like 1st of March. I was like, what? And I had just read on MSN saying food has gone up 29%. Fox News, food, 29%. Man, I was kind of in a panic state that, hey, we got to get some food. And then the thing in Japan happened. Listen, China, now I'm telling you not to fear, but I'm telling you this, don't sit back either. China is having the worst drought in 200 years. Now, I've read this also on CNN. 200 years. They said that they are self-sufficient in wheat. But they're a sixth of the world's population. And they said this is going to be a catastrophic event to their wheat crop unless a miracle happens. Do you know what China's going to do? They are not going to starve. They're going to buy our wheat. What do you think the price of wheat's going to do? Well, David told me, he said when he's got an appointment at the cannery, he's going down. They said the 4th, prices go up 25% at the cannery. That's the cost, guys. Now, you say, thanks a lot, Don. But listen, I want to instill in you the importance of going out and getting your provisions. Listen, the rule of threes, you need to start with the number 1 rule. That's shelter. Make sure you have shelter. Well, obviously, hopefully we all have shelter. Number 2, water. 3 days. 3 days. That's it. You've got to figure out your water. Now, and we're going to tell you every detail about water here at this conference? No. But I want to inspire you to go and to do your research and find out the way. Modern Online Survival. Modern Survival Online, he has great resources in his database. In fact, you can go and find out all these things about water, things you didn't even know about. A lot of things that I learned about. The Berkey water system, I learned from him and bought it because of him. There's one out there. I think there's a big stainless steel tank. Go out there and check it out. Now mine is just the big Berkey. That's the Imperial. Mine will do 6,000 gallons of water. 6,000. Okay, now, you need to do what you can. Now you say, you know what, Don, I don't see it. Obviously, if you're here, you do see it. But some of you see it in different elements. And you know, sometimes I'm downtown. In fact, when I made this video about this conference, one of the videos, I went to downtown Greenville. And I sat out there, and I had my little mustache, my goatee going on. Somebody said I looked like some kind of bohemian, out there. Because downtown Greenville, if you haven't been to downtown Greenville, it is one of the top 100. In fact, it's the number 35 in the top 100 cities in the country. It's beautiful. So go check it out. There's a beautiful park there if you're around. But now I'm thinking about going down there and laying out in the sun, And the thing is, I looked around at all these people walking around, and you know what? They're just living life. They're living life. They're enjoying themselves. And you know what? I personally thought, what am I so uptight about? I mean, really, come on back down. Come on back down. These people are just living life. They're doing what they're doing. But I'm going to tell you what. If you are paying attention and they're not paying attention. Listen, one terrorist act, one dirty bomb, forgive me for those of you who are in Atlanta, but one dirty bomb in Atlanta, Georgia, would end life as we know it. One catastrophic, one plague type illness, some kind of plague that comes through here would end life. Japan, I'm telling you, my respect for the people of Japan rose incredibly high, watching how they would stand at a phone to call loved ones very patiently. And then my mind went back to Katrina. Guys, it will not be that way here in this country. It will not be that way. Okay, so we have water, food. Food is very important. 3 weeks, I think Chad said 30 days. I think that's really more like it. 30 days without food. But here's the deal. Just because you can possibly live and still draw a breath at 30 days, your body starts to break down long before that time. You need to get your food. Somebody said that there's one food plan. They said it was $20,000 for food. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Guys, now, there's a lot of, and I'm going to tell you this, you need to break up your food for sure. You don't need just to get just beans and rice. There's some other things, dehydrated foods and things like that. Growing a garden is the best. But you need to, I know David did a study recently, and he said he tried to eat his long-term food storage. You know what? After about 4 days, he couldn't even eat. Because he just wasn't hungry. But yet he had to work, he had to do those things. So you need to get those things taken care of. But listen, whether you decide to go full on, or you just say, you know what, I'm going to go to a certain point. Let me tell you one of the things that really, I told my son the other day, and Engineer 775 really put this into words, because he said, sometimes when our kids are around, I don't want to make them afraid. I don't want to make them go, the end of the world's coming, the end of the world's coming. But one thing I do know is they hear things around.